And I'll go ahead and announce that. The running stream is starting now. Now I hear myself. Alright, well, welcome everybody to our latest Thrive stream for the release of 0.6.7. We have a couple new faces here. I don't recall if Juzo was at the previous Thrive stream. So we have, starting with me, I guess, I'm Buckley, the resident game designer, or lead game designer, though I have been absent as of late. Then we have one of our programmers, CO9, and Game Dungeon, one of our long-standing experienced programmers that's done a lot of work in their time. Relatively new face, Hexapod Philosopher, who's going to be the person behind all of the latest graphical changes. They've been doing a great job. Then we have our long-standing lead programmer, Hiralainen, and then we have one of our resident theorists, which I believe is, I may be mispronouncing, Juzo Lens 214. That seems to be all we'll be having here with us today. Fortunately, only two of us will be having audio as of now. So maybe a little bit quiet, but at least it won't be too chaotic.
Especially as, again, the music board doesn't work.
Yeah, so we get to enjoy the silence, unfortunately. No audio. They have to kind of create our own bot at this point and just load up the tracks from somewhere else. Maybe Dev Center?
I think the music bot actually can play local files, so I'll do something like download the Drive playlist onto the server and then modify the playlist to play local files.
That would be perfect then.
I think that's...
Alright. So we have quite a few features that have come about in this release. Lots of long-awaited ones, like the day-night cycle finally being implemented in full. Had quite a few changes with that. I'm excited for that because finally we can defeat the long-standing balancing issue of photosynthesis. Boy, it sure is powerful when there is no nighttime. Personally pretty happy about that. Plus, it'll just make things a little bit more dynamic now that you'll have changing light levels. If anybody would like to comment on that new feature. Okay. So then we have endosymbiosis. I'm admittedly not too familiar with its current implementation, if Hiralainen would like to discuss more on that topic. But it's also been a very long-awaited feature for some time, especially after the recent implementation of the unlocking system.
Yes, I guess I could say something about it. So as it currently stands, it's not like a full customization system that allows you to make custom organelles, because that have been extremely difficult to fit into the game. So this is what I call endosymbiosis light, where can be used to unlock existing organelles in the game, and also get some free organelles as you play. So even if you have unlocked something, it can be beneficial to get a tiny bit of benefit doing the endosymbiosis still. So basically how it works is that you engulf members of a species that you have decided to endosymbiosize. And as you make progress by by engulfing more members of that species and making it to the editor, you will eventually get to place that organelle that species is modeled like to turn into for free, and that permanently also unlocks the organelle for you. That's the basic function of the system, but it took still quite many days to implement all of the features and all of the GUI parts.
All right. Thank you for that overview. Then we do have a bit of a beginning of the rework to the toxins now that we have a variety of new toxin types you can evolve. Haven't looked into how those have been implemented yet, but as far as I understand, we have 4 types of toxins now.
I think 4 new ones plus of the course oxytocin, so there's 5 in total now.
Nice. But
And
as of now, it's just you can choose different toxins that affect the cells that are hit by them in different ways. For instance, we have some that will reduce the movement speed of the struck cell. And in the future, we will have a means to adjust fire rate, as well as the potency or toxicity of the toxins, and perhaps even different delivery mechanisms once we get further along in the toxin rework part of the roadmap.
yes, there's still quite a few things to do for the toxins, like chasing up the bioprocesses that produce the toxin variants to allow the game to eventually start without oxygen.
Right, yeah. I kind of forgot they are dependent on the oxygen level right now. Very easy to forget when it doesn't really change. Is there anything I've missed in this? Any other features we'd like to discuss?
Right there. Well, yeah, those were the major 3 features in this release, but there's also the new Ferroplast organelle, which many people have been waiting for quite a while. And there's also been gameplay balancing changes and various graphics improvements plus changes.
Alright, that is true. Those who rely on eating cells will find an easier time surviving now that cell chunks are a lot more filling and satiating, so to speak. That's a nice change. Fortunately, I never did get around to making some of the balance changes I had in mind for this update, but there's always the next one. I'll be listening for any feedback people have on the state of Fried's balance, so I would like to know how it feels to play for everyone else. It's a very important thing.
Yeah, I missed my chance to say hello, so hello. Yeah, I think the game balance it seems a lot better. It's certainly easier to play the game at the moment. It feels less of a struggle. I think maybe it's possibly a bit too easy for some people in certain play styles, but yeah, I'm not sure. But it's certainly a lot easier to be a predator now, and scavenging as well. Various different play styles I think are a lot more feasible now.
Always glad to hear it.
If anyone
But
has
I
any
think
comments on the day/night balancing, that a thing we want to hear about, because, well, so far no one has complained about the balancing, and I'm a bit suspicious that there is some balancing to be done there, but no one has said anything yet.
I would honestly be amazed if we managed to just get that right as is. That'd be incredible. There's just no way. So, yes, if anyone has any thoughts on how photosynthesis feels now, please let us know. So, yeah. Overall, a nice, hefty update. I am very appreciative of everyone who did their part. Shall we move on? That's all we really have left on the to-do list is answering our priority questions, and then all the questions the watchers have. I'll take that as a yes.
Yeah, I think we can move on.
All right, so I guess I'll start with the priority questions here for got just
Yes.
one person.
Yes. Our very dear VIP patron who always asks questions.
Thank you, Dune Lightning.
I have some audio issues which hopefully aren't audible on the stream, but so if I miss someone saying something, then that's probably an audio glitch on my side.
Oh dear. Right. So, starting with the first question, Dune Lightning asks, is there any planning to make a climate system for the game for the microbial stage and beyond? Ah, man. I entirely forgot I had the whole system that I was wanting to write down. Recently took an oceanography course, and that really fueled a lot of thoughts and ideas on how to make a dynamic climate system for Thrive, which I still need to jot down and actually make into a proper concept, but part of me's kind of been waiting for, I believe it was Game Dungeon that was looking into the planet editor. I kind of want to collaborate with them on that a lot before I just start like throwing out things and entirely derailing everyone. So yeah, it's definitely something we've kind of been silently cooking up amongst ourselves and haven't exactly gotten into discussing proper, but it's there. It's coming. And there are some older concepts and the likes as well that we've gotten into. I think the most recent one was the GAC, the Global Atmospheric Condition Score, which I guess I can post later as we continue on. Let's see here. And here we are. And post that in the stream chat as well. Here we are. Whoops, that is not what I wanted to. What was that doing in my clipboard? Here you go, a link to what you're already looking at. Okay, there we go. That's the proper one. I'll delete that one. Right, anyway, continuing on. Number 2, are you satisfied with the visual appearance of the game? If not, in which places do you want to improve? Personally, I'm pretty satisfied with it, at least in the microbe stage. Membrane stuff could probably do with a bit of the glow up as late. It does have some weird lighting issues now, but it's workable. How about everyone else?
Well, the Graphics changes have been basically the main thing that I've been working on, and yeah, I've found so many places that it could have improvements, um, including kind of redoing some of the parts, maybe just rescaling things, fixing some texture issues which aren't necessarily visible unless you're looking in the gallery. But yeah, there are loads of things that can be improved, and yeah, it's still ongoing. But yeah, there was a mention of having 3D cell membranes, and yeah, I could have a look at that soon. I really noticed when I was doing the new ice chunks that when I made it look quite a bit nicer, it got to the point where it was kind of making the cells look very sort of flat and bland by comparison. So I think having a 3D membrane would really make a bit of an improvement in that. Yeah, there's a picture there of something that I just started working on, having a phosphate chunk, which I found surprisingly easy. Basically, there was no actual coding that was needed, just copy and paste section of JSON file and change the details, and yeah, easily get a chunk spawning phosphate, which is something I felt could do with being added to make nitrogen fixing organelles actually make a bit more sense as have something to have in the game, because I've always felt they were a bit pointless, really.
Yeah, I'm very glad that you got around to implementing that. It's been something I've kind of had on my list of desires, but it's just we always needed a model for it, and no one ever really got around to it. So I'm very, very pleased with what you did. And it looks nice. And just having new chunk varieties alone is a really nice thing. It'll keep things a lot less monotonous.
Yeah, definitely. So the one that's in the picture there, that was based on a mineral called struvite, which is a real a real world thing which spawns in I think it's mostly anoxic environments. I might look at having it mainly spawn in particular patches, but I'm not sure. But yeah, I'll probably do another one that looks very different, so that so those don't get too monotonous.
You've been doing great work, Xpod. Alrighty. Next up, is there a plan for creature sharing, similar to what exists in Spore, or something completely different? Funny thing is, technically, you can already do that. Uh, the fossilization feature that we have in Thrive right now, if you pause the game using the pause button, not to be confused with the pause menu, you're actually able to select any cell around your immediate vicinity and fossilize them, which means you save them as a file and can then just keep track of them or load them into a free build mode later on. And as they're saved as a file, you can also share these creatures with other people. Of course, you gotta share them as the file, but you can do it. And that is presumably plans to be a feature for later stages as well. Can't imagine it not being the case. It's a very cool feature. So, guess that answers that question. Number 4 from Dune Lightning. If you had the option to add this moment, what biogeological event would you like to add to the game? For example, I would be happy to add an event of increased rock erosion, stuff like that. Biogeological event. Well, big one that comes to my mind is the great oxygenation event, which is kind of like the magnum opus of ways that life can change the world. That's at least the one thing that I want to try simulating accurately and more difficultly, making it balanced and sensible at the same time, which is quite the undertaking. But if we're going to tackle any biogeological process, it's got to be the oxygenization of the world. That is probably one of the biggest ways that life has changed the planet, is the atmospheric conditions. Other than that, there are a lot of ways that life is able to change the world. For example, many bacteria actually produce cloud-seeding proteins on the exterior through membranes that allows them to basically promote crystal formation, ice crystal formation, and promote rain. So basically, bacteria can form clouds and basically decide when to drop from said clouds as rain. Very fascinating. All right. Does anyone else have something to
Yeah,
comment on?
on that note, I do really like the idea that that someone suggested of having possibly a patch of the clouds. I think was Aaron was doing it in a planned mod. Is there any possibility of that becoming a thing in the main game?
So, if I recall correctly, a long time ago we did have we did at least acknowledge that as a possibility in terms of a migration method, where you could basically migrate from one patch to another through cloud cover. So kind of like a fast travel thing. But as far as a true patch in of itself, I'm not entirely confident on how well we could actually implement that in a not so much feasible but realistic way. It's already a bit of a stretch that cells are able to move around as they do in the environment and thrive. And in the clouds, things get a little bit more interesting. We wouldn't be working with fluid dynamics, we'd be working with aerodynamics. And it's when it comes to scientific plausibility, it's definitely a whole nother world, despite the similarities. Part of me wants to do it and would love to tackle that, but also it would be a lot of work.
Yeah, I guess so. But back to the question, I'd actually really like to see glaciation events, like a snowball Earth kind of thing. Maybe it would be something that would make more of a difference in macroscopic stages. I don't know really. Maybe it would get a bit too boring if just all of the higher up patches just became ice.
That is an interesting one, though. Just various changes in sea level and the likes from thermal expansion and such. Which there's just so much I want to simulate when it comes to geological processes of the world. It's very fascinating.
Would
Yeah,
changing sea levels be a possibility as something to affect the microbe stage?
uh, honestly, in the microbe stage, things are just so. What's the way to describe it succinctly? They're kind of ephemeral, so to speak. So stages, each environment's kind of just basically you would turn like let's say the river delta patch would just become an ocean patch, shallow ocean patch, and making that in a way that's really engaging to the players is a bit difficult. But yeah, it's so something to keep in mind.
I guess it's not really the case that most players would like it if partway through the game, when they're on the sea surface, suddenly their microbe is on land and then it dies.
Yeah. Like, it's an interesting question because a lot of our patches are determined by the environmental conditions, which we do intend to have change gradually over time. And having temperature tick up by like a 0.1 degrees Celsius every now and then, that's not a major change, it's just something the player can see happening and adapt to in time. But when you pass a threshold and suddenly the patch goes from ocean surface to ice shelf, does it? I suppose it really comes to mind. Is it just a change in how it's displayed to the player, or does that have real effects on the patch? So it's just a. I suppose we just need to consider uh, if the type of a patch should have a outright impact on what it is post generation, or if we should just entirely decouple the stats of the patch and its name for the most part, other than just a label, which I guess is more akin to what we might have to end up doing later on. But in the theoretical future, it would be best if things were just a gradual change, and then you just see the label change, but by then you'd probably already had the difficulties of adaptation out of the way. If that makes any sense. Well, I suppose we shall move on. Let's see.
I could interject at this point that I went checking the music playlist and I noticed that there's 7 private videos on the approved Drive soundtrack playlist, so that seems a bit problematic to me. Probably need to ping Oliver about this. Not right this second, but
Something to keep in mind. All right, where was I? Right. Number 5, do you think there will be a problem, and with it, in the future, the game will require more components for the game to run properly, as many popular games today require, and the trend is only increasing? I don't think I fully understand this question.
I think it's about system requirements or well, I mean, I don't foresee like the system requirements going up because even technically now with the 0.6.5 was it the ECS refactor which increased the system requirements, it was still at the same exact level that we set as the minimum requirement in 2019 on our Steam page. So I think we can keep targeting that, but at some point we might want to reconsider. But considering how many people like even now play or dream about playing Drive on a computer that's like from pre-2011.
Yeah, I feel like half our player base has potatoes. No offense. This seems to be the truth. Which, honestly, fair. Computers are expensive. Alright. So I suppose moving on. In your personal opinion, which came first? The membrane, the metabolism, or the genetic knowledge? Personally, I feel like it would have been a membrane. As far as theory goes, if I recall correctly, going by the warm little pond theory.
I think most of the most sort of well-established and supported ideas are kind of based on the membrane kind of being added to already existing self-replicating molecules, but it's debated whether it was just RNA to begin with or DNA, probably amino acids forming into that, and then afterwards the membrane coming about. But in terms of metabolism, I guess you could say it's partly there first and then partly added after the rest.
Something to think about. Alright, number 7. Last question. Is there any planning regarding symbiosis between bacterial species and or biofilm? Okay. I imagine you're talking about like basically so technically speaking, we kind of already had this in a way. Granted, we don't actually have bacterial colonies, but we do have the eukaryotic colonies. When it comes to balance, I've kind of been debating on having a bacterial binding agent, or at least some kind of exo binding agent of sorts that allows you to form a bit of a simple colony with others. Probably wouldn't have you share resources like the eukaryotic variant, but at least you'd be able to kind of work together in a cluster that makes it harder for you to be eaten. Something to think about in the future. But as of now, there's not really like any official plans. Best you can do now is use basically the closest thing we'd have to a biofilm is the mucus, or not the mucus, the mucus jet. Mucus will come later. All right.
There's the mucosist organelle that we're working on now that will allow you to create a sort of a mucus shell around the cell, and it's possible that that could be expanded in future to kind of more permanent structures, but don't really know.
Alrighty. Now that we got the priority questions out of the way, I suppose we'll move on to, we'll kind of switch between the forum questions and the stream questions. If anyone's been keeping track, I've kind of loosely been following what people have been asking.
I think someone just posted some of their stream questions.
Oh yeah,
Channel.
thank you.
Above that music bot problem.
For Shuffle, who asked, no matches found. Anyhow, so I'll start with, since I guess I started with priority questions on the forum, we'll answer this question from 50 Gens. Are biofilms and endosymbiosis related? No, not really. Biofilms are basically, think of like pond scum on the surface of a pond. It's just a large collection of bacterial forms that are kind of working together. Most of the time, they'll have a excreted agent between all of the individual cells that helps protect them and keep them as a cohesive mass. But for the most part, they are individual creatures living in a colony and doesn't really have any bearing on the nature of endosymbiosis, which is a completely unrelated concept. Endosymbiosis refers to basically inside symbiont. That is to say that it is the theory of a creature taking in a cell or bacteria and utilizing it as a symbiont. That is, symbiont being something that benefits both the host and itself in the relationship. One of my favorite examples of this would be coral endosymbionts. with coral absorbing various photosynthetic dinoflagellates, such as zooxanthellae, and using those to photosynthesize and protecting the zooxanthellae from external threats. So yeah, next question. We have Ada from Frazada, and they asked, when do you plan to implement surface area and volume ratios, dynamic environments, and organelle regulation? That's a lot of concepts blast from the past. I forgot about my surface area and volume ratio concept. That one's probably going to be on the back burner for a bit. Still something to discuss more in depth. This is a major gameplay change. Foundational change, I would even argue. Dynamic environments, however, as we said, it's definitely something that we've kind of had an undercurrent discussion going on. Nothing official yet, but we definitely, actually, if I recall correctly, it is on our release roadmap. Let me take a look at that when we have that. I think it's in the next release cycle, 0.7, if I recall correctly. Let's see. Oh, the music bot's working now.
Yeah, turns out all the file paths just need to be plain file paths without any URL prefix, so they work now. So I downloaded the entire playlist and then uploaded to the Brickbot server, so handle it.
Okay, so it is on a roadmap in the 0.8 release cycle, so we have plenty of time to procrastinate. Plenty of time to go over the concepts in depth. All right, going back to, well, I'll go ahead and answer this next question. How many updates do you think the developer team may finish until the end of this year? How long is your break gonna be here, Landon? About 4 weeks
4
or so?
weeks.
Okay, yeah, we got plenty of time. I'd say probably, what, 2 more updates? Sure, maybe something like two more updates. Alrighty. Now, next question from Soza13. Do you know when there will be teasers of updates to stages of the creature and civilization? There's not much work going into those as of now, as our focus is now very firmly on the microbe stage, as we are very dedicated to getting that done. Once we hit about 1.0 or so, then we'll definitely be working on the next stage over. But until then, there probably won't be much in a way of new features for the later stages. Mainly just bug fixes for the most part. Alright. Next up, we have a new user. Are there plans to add multiple toxin sources or delivery method? Yes. That's actually been one of my more, one of the features I've been more excited about. I've been constantly reiterating on nematocysts and endotoxins and things like that. Various mechanisms of storing and delivering toxins to your friends, family, and enemies. Still nothing too concrete, but it's definitely something that's being cooked up steadily. Especially now that we are on the topic of toxins for the next update, and for this update too even, it's going to be something that you can look forward to soon. Alright, and with the endosymbiosis feature being added, are there going to be any future additions that lock players out of gaining some cell features directly? Personally, in my opinion, I'd rather avoid locking players into any specific path, so to speak, at least in a microbe stage. And even in later stages, we still want to have at least some manner of flexibility for the most part. Though by then, changing your primary diet would probably be very expensive. It'd be very difficult to move from a photosynthesizer to a chemosynthesizer, for instance, as it would be a very gradual change to do. Now, I have entertained the idea of membranes determining what kind of materials you have at your disposal. For instance, you use a cellulose membrane and go into later stages, you'd be working with that sort of subset of materials for skin coverings. So fibrous skin coverings and things like that, as opposed to just plain old, like chitin, for example, you would not have. Something to entertain, but nothing official as of now. If anyone has anything to comment on that. Alright, moving on, we have another question from Adon Adia. Sure. Well, they're the non-oxygenating photosynthesis organelles, like purple bacteria. I would say that's a possibility, but nothing confirmed. I would like to have more parts for photosynthesis, at least as an upgrade or so in the future. But it's something we'll have to look into. And Seeth Hayden said, it'd be nice if you could tell more about what a cell's holding from looking at it. We do have a rough concept, or we do try to keep things like that as far as organelles go. So you can usually ascertain what a cell might hold based on the organelles it has and what it would want to hold to begin with. So anything with chemosynthesizing organelles, for example, would be something you can deduce would have hydrogen sulfide. But it would be interesting to kind of have a sort of shader that colors the insides of the cell based on what it has inside. So a glucose-rich cell might have a lot of white, cloudy substances in them, but something to entertain, I suppose. I'll leave that for our graphics programmers and the likes to think about.
Yeah, who don't exist because, well, we haven't managed to snag one yet. They are pretty mythical beings, all of them.
Indeed.
One thing that actually probably would help that user is that when you pause and you get the fossilization buttons, you can click those, and then the pop-up that opens actually shows the cell's layout view similarly to how the editor shows it. So it makes it very easy to see which organelles that species actually has.
Right. Then Magnum Opie says, how are they planning to transition between cell to anything higher, or are they just going to feature creep forever? We're feature creeping. We are feature creeping forever. I'm kidding, of course. In fact, one of the main reasons we've switched to a higher gear, so to speak, is because we don't want to be in a microbe stage forever. We've decided that most of the things on the feature release roadmap are going to be what stays there, and any other major features are kind of going to be back burner issues. We want to actually complete the microbe stage someday, believe it or not.
Yeah, the microbe stage roadmap is complete and it is not accepting any new major ideas like that. Cell held compounds changing its graphics.
Any features not on the roadmap would basically be a side project up to the discretion of whoever ends up working on that. But as far as primary development, yeah, it's set in stone now for the most part. The feature creep is definitely real. It's a very easy trap to fall into, and especially in Fry's development. There's so much in life that we all want to simulate, and everybody has their own favorites, so to speak. So picking and choosing what makes it in and what doesn't, at least in the roadmap, is tough, but we're doing it.
We already answered that forum question that's on screen. I wasn't fully paying attention as I was speaking the music, but
Yes, we did. We did question. We did answer those. Yes.
so Ada is answered. Did we answer human?
Yes, we did. We're on Tabat now.
All right.
Which I'll go ahead and read those out. So Tabat's asked or said, "It's been a long journey, and although development is far from over, so true, I want to ask you what it's like to work on a game that's almost a decade old and can be said to have gone through several generations of developers already." It's definitely an experience.
Very different from working on another type of project. And well, I'd say the one major downside is that people complain that game has been around for 10 years and this is the only thing you have to show for it. When in fact, basically none of us active developers have been here for even 10 years, so we are being blamed for something we couldn't have affected at all.
Yep. I would say working on this project, it feels like progress. I just walk into something that I was not around for the beginning of. Unfamiliar territory, unfamiliar people. Contribute my own bits and pieces. See how that changes the bigger picture, and then I just wonder how long I'll stick around. Maybe someday someone else will take up the mantle. It's something we just kind of live in a moment with. So yeah, it's a bit of a difficult feeling to put into words. But I suppose it feels like progress. Best I can say. And then we said, what do you imagine the finished look of the environment to be in patches on the microbe stage? Well, we have microbe terrain on the roadmap, so kind of some physical obstructions to make things a little bit more enclosed in different patch types. More chunk types would be nice to kind of give things a little bit more variety and flavor as per each patch. But for the most part, I foresee it being just pretty much the same. It's more diversity in general. If anyone else has any ideas on that?
Yeah, definitely more diversity. I've as mentioned already, started working on new types of chunks. There is also when I added in an Easter egg that has yet to actually make it into the game, but it's there in the code. But having more 3D is something that's been an open issue for quite a while, I think. I'm not entirely sure how to tackle that. But yeah, I'll probably try adding in bit by bit things that make it look a little bit more 3D. Like the large bubbles that are in some of the scenes. People sort of feel that it kind of breaks the immersion to an extent, because as you move around it, it becomes noticeable that it's not actually moving or anything. So stuff like that certainly be improved. Yeah, it'll be nice for it to all look more varied, more specific to the different type of environment you're in. And yeah, maybe a bit more colourful in certain ways.
That sounds about right in what I had in mind as well. moving on. Let's see. GP Jetty what has said, could there be what is the driving motivation to keep players inside of colonies instead of just hopping straight to multicellular? And to answer that question, for the most part, is sharing resources and more efficiency overall. Photosynthesizers especially benefit from colonies, as you're able to kind of produce a lot more glucose at a more steady rate. So generally just safety in crowds and all that. It is actually a huge benefit, but I can understand why people wouldn't entirely grasp that. It's a bit more complex in how it helps. And then they asked, what next items on the roadmap are for programmers? I'll post a picture of the 0.6.x for that one. Hopefully that's legible for the viewers. Oh yeah, that's no. Oh dear. Oh, there we go. Now it's readable. Cool. All right. Thank you, Game Dungeon. All right. Now where was I? Back to the forum questions. Bomger has asked, do you think that the development speed is increasing or decreasing over time? And how do you think that will change in the future? That's a loaded question. It has increased, I will say that much, but the future is as uncertain as it has always been. As funding is changing.
Yeah, basically we need more money than we are currently making in order to afford even one full-time developer working on Drive. So the speed is going to nosedive unless we get some extra patrons or more people buying the Steam or itch version.
Yeah. One of the, pretty much the reason that we have been putting out updates at such a fast rate as of late, getting so much done, is because Heroland here is our sole paid programmer full-time to work on Thrive. And we are very thankful for having the money or funds to do that, but unfortunately they are kind of drying up as of now, so yeah. If you want to see...
Hopefully people will want to see Drive completed. They are happy with the current progress on new features, so that they'll keep supporting us.
So yeah, we could use your support, is to say. Shameless Patreon injection right now. I'm gonna do that right now, as soon as I can find a link. Oh, there it is. Right, and post you right there. So yes, if you'd like to support our development and ensure that the speed continues at a semi-reasonable rate, please do so. We could use the support. So moving on, Cast96 has asked, what might be added to the new Toxin customization system in the future, and will one be able to add individual effects, perhaps? I'm a bit uncertain about delving into the complexities of total Toxin customization. It's just easier balance and implementation and understanding wise to just have preset toxins available. That way when something hits you with a toxin, you at least already have an idea of what it's doing to you, as opposed to everything having very wackadoodle mystery toxins that affect you in ways you don't understand. It's already bad enough in life. Don't think we want that in Thrive. But it would be interesting and kind of cool. But unfortunately, simplicity is the better game design choice. As for more customization in general, Hirelanen did add a bar that allows you to toggle between faster firing rates or more potency, which isn't yet implemented, but that is something to look forward to. So you will have at least some levers to pull to change how your toxins work.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
next-
Did the dev block get already fixed? As it claimed that that feature was done, but it's just a graphical placeholder.
Yep. Alright, next question for Kaz96 is, I'm not sure what full endosymbiosis means, but will we potentially be able to create better versions of an organelle through endosymbiosis eventually, such as a better output or by consuming less resources for a similar output? Personally, I would say that role has been replaced with the upgrade system for the most part, and total endosymbiont customization, as much as I was totally for it in the past, I'd say it's probably best left out.
Yeah, it would basically mean that endosymbiosis full is the feature like that we would need to add to the game. And as I've said before, that's going to be an absolutely massive undertaking, and so that's going to eat up like at least 5, probably 10 major features from the micro roadmap in terms of how much time it would up. So do we want like 10 extra nice big features, or do we want a bit more customization in the endosymbiosis system?
And one thing I'd really like to bring into consideration is it's already a huge undertaking to have the editor in the multicellular stage. I'm sure y'all have noticed you're able to edit not just a creature, but the individual cells of that creature. So imagine how much additional depth, for better and for much worse, it'd be to have not just 2 layers of editing, but 3 when you're editing the parts of the cell that's also part of your organism. It'd be ridiculous, I'm not gonna lie. Cool, but unfortunately, in terms of functionality, understanding, and just accessibility in general, it's a bit much.
Not to mention how difficult it would be to fit into the code structure, which assumes that all organelle types are known when the game starts.
So yeah.
So I'm glad that Buckley can come up with gameplay reasons as well, that why we programmers don't need to experience the pain of trying to implement this change.
Yeah, the 2-layer system I think is the best option for the time being, if not ever, forever. Alright. Moving on, I lost my place with the stream questions. Blah, 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 blah. Here we go. Nope, never mind. I've already answered that. Okay. Reese has asked, how will the default day-night cycle affect planetary generation in 0.8? I.e., will it prevent all-day planets or all-night planets, or shorter or longer day-night cycles than is standard? I can already say that the day-night cycle isn't going to affect that so much as the planetary generation is going to affect a day-night cycle. Having probably the most likely thing is it's just going to be an adjusted duration of day and night based on the planetary placement. But that just depends on the overall complexity of how planet generation turns out. Yeah, there are tidally locked planets that would have one side that always experiences day and one side that always experiences night, but that's something that we'll just have to see when we get there. Definitely gonna be some more side project type of thing, as we want to mainly focus on what is more general. So when it comes to planet generation, you'll probably just see it's general, just day-night planets, nothing too crazy. But that doesn't mean it isn't a possibility. Personally, I'm more wondering if we want to implement axial tilt, as that has a lot to do with both seasons and the length of day and night in the upper hemispheres. That's gonna be a fun one. Ugh. Maybe for the first iteration of planet generation, we'll just decide that your planet has no axial tilt. Just make it easier for us. So yeah, we get there when we get there. Definitely a lot to discuss in regards to that very ridiculously complex system that is the living planet. So yeah, next question. From Tadat, this is a pretty serious question. Oh boy. How mentally prepared are you to get to the end of Thrive development, at least to the awakening stage?
I don't think we need to be prepared because it's going to take way more than a decade, so you can just gradually come to terms with it. But I don't foresee Thrive ever being like fully complete. Like there's always going to be something to add or something to fix. So if someone wants to, they could probably work on Thrive forever.
Yep. If Thrive was to be complete someday, I'd probably just buy a motorcycle and ride into the sunset. Have like a midlife crisis or something. At this point, it's just like a factor of my life. I'm pretty sure I've already been a part of this development team for a quarter of it. Alright. But yeah, as far as things go, it's just something I don't really consider because I've always just been. It's something we progress on and we just make Thrive better, but as here Landon said, it's something that completion is a bit of an ephemeral concept that may not ever arrive. Not so much because we haven't completed all stages, because who really decides when we're done? Alright, now back to the forum questions. Chiori has asked, when do you plan to add that auto elo can use organelle upgrades? There's now quite an amount of them, and it does make an impact. When do we plan to do that? Is that on the release roadmap?
I can't remember, but I think that's such a big feature that at least in the 0.9 range, when we are polishing things up, then we'll need to make the upgrades available by the AI and auto evo.
Probably going to be in the 0.8 release schedule. Do you have as that particular part is focused around auto evo?
Yeah, that would thematically fit there. It's not set there explicit. Maybe we'll remember by the time.
Alright, and next question from Chiori is, what is your favorite new feature this update? I'm kind of biased in being excited for the Toxins, even though it's not a major thing and largely unfinished, but that's my favorite part. Outside of day-night cycle, how about that? That's been a long time coming. Does anyone else have something to add? Favorite feature of this release?
I think the endosymbiosis is probably my favorite. It does sort of add quite a bit more variety. Add some stuff to the gameplay as well. Like allows you to get a bit prepared for adding the nucleus by getting a mitochondrion or a ferroplast in advance.
Fair enough. It is a very nice feature, being able to add a new pathway to unlocking parts and even getting a bit of a boost in adaptation speed. I know once you get that nucleus, it's kind of slow going and replace all your parts with the new efficient eukaryotic variants, especially with the unlock conditions as they currently are as a basis. So endosymbiosis is a very cool feature to have.
Although it could do with some quality of life improvements, I think. Like it can be a bit difficult to work out where you can go to actually get the species. Sometimes you're having to kind of click around various patches and kind of go back to remind yourself what the actual name of the species was, that kind of thing. It can be a bit fiddly to keep going with it each generation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I opened an issue on GitHub that the endosymbiosis GUI should show a warning if some species is not in your current patch, so you don't try to endosymbiosize it in vain, not being able to progress.
Okay.
We'll see when someone wants to implement that GUI part.
One thing I'm currently kind of have some loose plans for is endosymbiosis as a feature is entirely locked out for players that have chosen to get a cell wall of sorts as they cannot engulf. Now that makes sense, of course, and I wouldn't want to change that. I do have ideas for kind of the workaround for it in the form of plastids. If a cell, basically, what's the term for it? What is the term for it? It's stuck on my tongue. Basically, plastids would be something you don't really engulf so much as make contact with to kind of give you some progress in evolving the eukaryotic part. Basically, you pick up some loose genetic material and incorporate it into yourself, which is something that cells do all the time. Like, all the time. It's crazy. In fact, pretty sure it occurs with plants a lot between them and their endophytes. So it's something that just happens all the time. Like, what is that term called? I'll think of it after the stream. I'll know. I suppose we'll move on. Where was I? Okay. Steve Hayden has asked, is there a chance of the nucleus being changed to increase DNA per generation? Probably not. Could help make the big jump happen a little easier. So we won't really be increasing the amount of MP you have each generation. There may be some ways to get a discount on it, but other than that, the MP level will pretty much remain a constant 100 each generation. Unless you have a specific, I don't know, I'm pretty sure even the difficulty options just increase the price of things rather than increase the amount. So not something that's liable to change anytime soon.
The code functionality already has a way to calculate discounts. Basically, in multicellular editor, you get a 50% discount on all microbe states stuff.
Yeah. And thank you, Juzo. Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking of. Gene transfer.
Where did the conversations go in terms of having possible precursors to the nucleus? Would it be possible to have a nucleus start off a little bit smaller and cost less?
I will mention that
Also
the
help with that
first
transition.
difficulty with that is when it comes to parts changing size, especially in terms of like upgrades, it it's a bit complicated in that we'd definitely have to come up with a way to make the player basically relocate that part the moment you upgrade it, since they would have to change size and have some issues with wherever the player originally placed it, more than likely. I would love that as a concept, though. It's a bit more progressive change between the proto-nucleus and a nucleus, kind of the mid-stage, so to speak. But the size in itself is a bit of a complicating matter that we'd have to have a lot of custom logic for. And I'm not sure, like, I wouldn't be entirely against it as a feature, having upgrades change the size of organelles, but it does add a bit of programming bloat to consider. So I'll leave that.
I guess the Auto Evo, it would, well, not Auto Evo, but the AI, it could cause a lot of issues for that.
That's a very valid point that I didn't even consider. Poor Auto Evo, I always neglect it. So yeah, it's complicated, but I would like to see that. I did consider for a time decreasing the size of the nucleus from shoot, what is it, 10 hexes to about 9 or 8, so around that, or not, 6, I think. No, 7, yes. 6. I can math, I assure you. I did play around with that as a concept.
Just the nucleus itself, and then not having an extra bit for the Golgi apparatus and so on.
Now that is an interesting way to approach it, now that I think about it. Having it as a more of a modular system. So then you have the interesting system of having the nucleus on one side and the Golgi on the other side of the cell, which then kind of throws us into the conundrum of, do you want to have proximity systems in the cells? Do you want to play with that level of complexity? It's something that's come up before. Yes. Not even in Thrive. All of my game projects I work on, I am always bound to the whims of the programmers, so I'm used to it. Yes. That's why I've always wanted to learn programming, but I just don't seem to have the mind for it. Right, where was I? Right, anyhow. Let's see. Will you add new types of rocks? For example, rock that produces sulfur. Yes. In fact, we're working on that right now. Xpod just implemented that one. Didn't make it into this update, but I'm sure we'll see it in the next. And I'm sure that we'll have some more along the way eventually as well. In fact, I think Noons, if I could just get that fellow to finally share those models for us, we'd have some new variants for other chunks like salts even, which would be pretty nice to see. We get there when we get there. In Act 4,
I'd really like to see more sulfur gameplay, more varieties of that. I'd particularly like to have sulfur chunks, and then I think there was a suggestion of having maybe a sulfur cycle included, which I think would be really good in terms of at the very least relating to how life evolved on Earth, and the seas getting kind of large parts of it taken over by sulfur bacteria, and then kind of excluding other kinds.
Yes, you do raise a good point. The sulfur cycle is something I've kind of briefly teased a bit myself pretty often, because sulfur biogenesis, or rather sulfur metabolism, is a very complex and fascinating topic in of itself. Hydrogen sulfide, for instance, is only a part of a much larger system where hydrogen sulfide is often the byproduct of other biological systems. So we could definitely play into that a lot, but we'll probably have that layered into a later point of the dynamic compounds system that we want to work on. So we'll probably implement dynamic compounds and all that first, and then play with the sulfur cycle as a concept, as it's a hydrogen sulfide synthesis that would be the primary source of hydrogen sulfide outside of geological sources. So swamps, for instance, have hydrogen sulfide, or swamp gas, as you would know it as, because of biological organisms and their degradation of biological matter. So without that as a system in Thrive, you just wouldn't have hydrogen sulfide in places like swamps, and you wouldn't have the bacteria capable of digesting it in those environments. So it's something that we'll have to get to later on, but it is definitely something I want to see eventually. Just probably not yet. And then, of course,
the sulfur chunks could also sorry for interrupting. They could also allow more possibility for cells that rely on sulfur to actually be able to spread to other areas as well. If it's kind of they're tending to be along sea floor levels and then possibly coastal areas.
right on, some good thoughts there. Yeah, for now, the primary concern is just handling different types of sulfur, because we try to keep the amount of compound varieties a bit more limited, as for both simplicity's sake and because, well, there's only so many colors we have to work with before things get a bit confusing. So with different types of sulfur compounds, it gets a bit complex. And I'm currently kind of debating on if we want to handle it in a sort of a obtuse way, and where it's not so much a sulfur type, but the way you get it that would determine the diet. For instance, hydrogen sulfide would be the wild type compound, and you have the sulfur chunks, which would be its own thing, and vice versa. And then you just have the sulfur compound. But it's a lot to discuss and think about, and a bit complex in handling that with how we have things currently set up. Because there's lots of types of sulfur out there, lots of ways to metabolize it, and only one sulfur color other than, yeah. The trials and tribulations of game design. Let it be known. This is part of why it takes so long to make Thrive. Alrighty.
Were the final forum questions answered already?
I'm sorry?
Were the final forum questions answered?
Oh, no. I kind of missed that one somehow. I'm sorry. So from 31415 has asked, what kind of questions would you like people to ask for a Thrive stream? You know, I feel like they've been asking good questions so far anyway. So, more of the same, I guess. Anyone else have thoughts on that? No? Alright. And then they wanted, what are you feeling about Thrive? Well, personally, here lately I've had a bit of a burnout, but I still love it as one of my favorite projects in the wide world. And it will always be the case, no matter how tired I get of working on it. I'm sure I'll eventually return to it in full force and full passion. But till now, I'm just kind of tired and working on other projects. But yeah, it's cyclical.
I've been really enjoying getting involved, but yeah, it has often been a bit more challenging than I'd expected, really, with struggling to learn how to use GitHub and various other technical issues, and then of course all the kind of difficulties of trying to determine with other people what kind of things to include. And yeah, it's definitely been enjoyable, and yeah, I'm feeling very positive about how the game's progressing. Yeah.
Ah, yes, the technical issues. Thrive is held together with love, and love is a fickle thing. All right. Anyone else have some thoughts on that they'd like to share? All right. I suppose that's it for our questions on the forums. Oh yeah, and by the way, I have a text document cheat sheet that I use whenever I use Git with all the commands for. Now, some of them did ingrained into my mind at this point, like Git submodule update is a big one that you need to do pretty often. But I still have my cheat sheet whenever I find myself kind of at a loss.
Yeah, I have the same thing. It's sort of about 2 pages, but I keep having to go over it to change the actual information on it as I learn more about what different commands are actually doing. And some of the information online is quite misleading about what it's actually trying to do when you type in a certain thing.
Ah, yes, for sure. But hey, you learn as you go. It gets easier once you get used to it. I will mention though, the merging process is still a bit of the esoteric process for me that I'm usually pretty cautious and unsure about, but I usually get it done somehow.
That's
All right.
definitely like a very specific skill you can have to know how to effectively merge things without breaking anything. That's probably like the hardest thing with Git.
Yeah, for sure. Alrighty.
Now with
Back
the
to
forum questions done, I think I can show a bit of Drive gameplay the stream.
Alright, sounds good to me.
I'm trying to fit all of the chats on screen as well, so gameplay is not going to be huge.
Gameplay of Thrive is always huge. I don't know what you're talking about. Alrighty. So Act 4, Planet Generation. What are your thoughts on adding a tectonic editor? Being able to choose where the continents move throughout the planetary history and when they form supercontinents. Oh, jeez. The very concept of tectonics is already a bit of something to surmount. I want it. We all want it. Oh man. Yeah. Why do
No,
planets have to be so complicated?
there have been suggestions that it could be an unnecessary level of detail to include in the game, but if we want to actually have the planet shaping over time, there will have to be something that essentially is modeling tectonics, at least at a basic level.
At its most simplest, we'd probably just have patches denoted as a plate, and we just have to calculate where they'd move and how often. But you are correct in that it's probably going to have to be on the back burner, something that just may not make it in ever. But yeah, something to consider. But did I even mention how crazy planets are? Jeez. Plate tectonics itself is just something that happens on a planet with a molten core. Just a bunch of floating islands of debris. But yeah, fortunately, no promises on plate tectonics. As much as I'd love it, it's something. Reese has asked, going off axial tilt, and wondering through 0.8, will you have to think about not just planet generation, but solar system generation? I assume just a bare minimum, because otherwise it is too complicated. Yeah, about that. Planet generation and solar system generation are pretty much one and the same at this point, because any other planet or celestial body in the system is going to affect the planet too. Like the presence of the moon will affect the tides. The sun and its size and its proximity will also affect the tides. It'll also affect the sunlight and also affect it's a lot. It's crazy. I hate it and I love it. So, at its most bare minimum, we would probably assume from the start a basic Earth-like solar system, and from there we may decide to allow the solar system to be changed or otherwise just a planet. But even the planet's features are determined by the solar system, so yeah. You're right, it is complicated.
Also, once we have a planet generator, we can just run that 8 times to build a solar system.
Yeah, the way I see it is to implement the planet editor, the solar system will probably be changed based on your decisions on the planet itself. So like, let's say how hot or cold the planet is on average would be changing the distance between it and the star. And that would be something that happens in the background and not actually something that the player would be tweaking in the terms of the distance. They just see, okay, you want this planet hotter or colder. That's the way I see it, and probably the best way to simplify such things. And then the solar system itself would just be generated based on those parameters. It's something we have to discuss, because it's, again, it's been undercurrent of something that we've wanted to start discussing. We've kind of been sharing ideas, but discussion hasn't become full-blown. We don't have any full concepts on the matter yet. Keep your eyes out. Right. Tabat has asked, what is the most exciting thing for you in Thrive, even that we don't have currently in-game? Oh, man. Does anyone else have some ideas? So I'm having trouble picking favorites here. I suppose for me it would have to be the, at least in the far future, overall, is the creature editor. I am so excited to get into that proper. But other than that, just simulating the planetary environment and biomes as a whole is going to be the big one. So yeah, as Game Dungeon said, basically just the planet gen. Yeah, it's just being able to simulate the entire biosphere of the planets in a game-like manner is an undertaking that I have chosen to be the one big accomplishment. I am very excited to see that happen. Continue, Hexbot? I'm sorry.
I'd really like to get to the point where you could have basically dinosaurs running around, that kind of thing, and then I don't know, evolving dinosaurs into civilizations. That's something that I'm really looking forward to in the future. But in terms of slightly nearer stuff, I would really like to to be able to have a basic fleshed out 3D creature editor. Hopefully I'll find time to get back to working on doing a basic skin for that, which would allow for creating basic creature shapes. But yeah, there would need to be a lot more work done to actually get that fully fleshed out. But yeah, when the whole thing's done, then that would really be a great step forward. And being able to have, going from full cell stage all the way up to that would that'd be really great to play with.
Oh yeah, that would be the day. Really looking forward to it, whenever that is. All right. Tad that has also asked, so what tagline for Thrive do you think is better? Write your own saga of life, or will you thrive? Huh. That's a close one. I'm pretty sure we use both of them, actually.
I think for like general audiences, like the first one is maybe a bit better because it kind of paints a picture of what the game is about.
Valid.
The other one is kind of like a pun, doesn't like actually really immediately mean anything. Someone hearing about the game first time.
You make a compelling argument. I gotta agree with that. Is that write your own saga of life? That is the winner. He's between the in here landing. Alright. Oh boy. Zix, there's Zikron will. Zinyan will. Well, they're the dynamic romance based on the hormones used in the aware stage. Or in other words, I recreate troll romance from Homestuck.
Have you seen the forum posts? Someone made a really long forum post about this.
No.
Troll romance. So yeah, I'm not sure if that's like the same person who made that, but basically there's a way longer post than it really should be possible to make about argumenting why Homestuck troll romance is a very relevant gameplay design talking point for Thrive.
Fascinating. Well, to answer the question in a serious manner, the implementation of hormones is an interesting question. I'm kind of leaning towards kind of having a pass on that, mainly because the science of hormones itself is still, there's a lot of uncertainty into the exact extent of how hormones affect a creature, or the lack thereof even. It's a very complex topic, and I think we'll probably just hand wave it for the most part for sake of simplicity and understanding for the players. But I suppose we'll have to see in the future.
I think romance in more general terms certainly be something that could be included when we're having the creature stages. We'd certainly want to have a variety of different means of interacting, and certainly make it more complex, more varied, and more realistic than in games like Spore.
You don't want the four-button dancing minigame.
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely think, various kinds of things that could be considered romance should definitely be in the game, but how complex that would be, it's very hard to say at this point.
I think personally we should take it a step further and take a page from 4, and instead of having that like dancing minigame with 4 buttons and basically Simon Says, we just take the full Dance Dance Revolution style and use your arrow keys to follow the beat. That's not serious, by the way.
I mean, someone will probably like make a mod like that or something. Maybe that's an Easter egg feature that you can unlock a dance minigame in Drive.
Yeah, that could be a good Easter egg, actually. Yeah.
I'm suspecting that like once we are in like the aware state, there's going to be quite a lot more interest and varied people who would like to add their one specific favorite idea into the mix.
Alrighty.
Also, if anyone is wondering why I only get like 20 FPS in the game, it's because I'm playing the game with a debugger on. That the debugger basically costs like over 200 FPS for me.
You ever wonder if there's gonna be a point in Fry's development where Easter eggs become forgotten and lost until someone rediscovers them?
I think it's only going to be possible if we stop remaking stuff in the game, like the easiest refactor or switching other major architecture things, or maybe even an engine change, which I hope will never have to happen again. But all of those require that I know every single part of the game in order to be able to convert it. So as long as that kind of stuff keeps happening, someone will have to know everything. But if we go like the next 10 years without having to do such a refactoring thing, then I see that as being possible.
Fair enough. Alright, Mr. 42 has asked, how do you imagine planets will be when they are different? For example, easy, normal, or hard planets. We'll probably have presets. Yes, as Game Dungeons just said. Probably have the standard Earth-like planet as a basis. That'll probably be for your basic easy difficulties and vice versa. But it'd be fun to have some challenging presets as well. Something like a ice ball planet or something like that. That'd be fun. Other than that, it's just the preset default planets that aren't like too crazy or anything.
I think if tidally locked planets do become a thing, I think that would probably be a hard mode one. But I'm not too sure. But having a water world planet, I think that could be a good one for hard mode. Just one relatively small island. So it would still be possible to progress, but you'd be a lot more restricted.
I'm afraid I must now go. I believe that was the last question as well, though. At least that Game Dungeon's keeping track of. So I must now run to work. So it was a pleasure being here and talking with everyone.
Thanks for handling managing things again.
No problem.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Adios.
As we've lost Buckley, I think we should start thinking about ending the stream, maybe answering a few last chat questions. So now's like the last chance to ask any questions. I think I'll need to cheat a bit to show even any new features in the game. Going to show off the barrel blast.
So I could speak a little bit about that. So the Ferroplast, it was what I'd previously put into the game as a mod around the start of the year, I think. And I was going to suggest integrating it into the full game, and then it was decided that you probably needed to have it as something to allow more variety for endosymbiosis. It was something that I felt was needed to be added to the game to add more of a variety of different types of gameplay that could actually continue, so that you didn't always have to rely on mitochondria.
Yeah, people definitely had been asking for it for quite a while. I guess in the gameplay, I'm now finally seeing this bug myself where in engulf things just die and then take some resources for seemingly no reason. It's a bit unfortunate. Happens. Guess I'll finish off by showing how you can start the endosymbiosis process. Like this species probably has a bunch of rust organelles because it takes only 2 engulfings to get a ferroplast out of this species. Now I basically need to engulf more of these species to be able to get it as an endosymbiont. Yeah, there we go. The temporary organelle, and if I go to the editor now, there's some progress on this. Anyway, I think that might be enough drive gameplay. Did we get any new stream questions while I file out a bug about this thing?
There's a question about how the disturbance eat. I've no idea. I don't think they have any organs that actually open up, do they? Isn't the whole face an eardrum, something like that? I don't know. I guess they'd have to feed by osmosis or something. Maybe they feed on all the ground that they're walking on or something.
Was there any other question, or was that the best last question chat was able to come up with?
Seems to be pretty much it at the moment.
it suddenly got very quiet, but I think the music bot is still playing. Probably has a pretty quiet track, so.
Yeah, it's still playing. Actually, seeing the message about chitinase, it's made me wonder why does it seem to be the case that if you have a membrane that is meant to make you not engulfable, you can still be engulfed and can still die from it, but you can't engulf any other cells that have that same membrane. I'm assuming that's not meant to be the case.
I mean, it's different, like what you are, not what you can eat. Like the old saying doesn't apply in Thrive. So like you need to have the specific enzyme that can break down the prey's membrane in order for you to eat it.
But I'm sure that if you have the silica membrane, for instance, that you can still be engulfed.
Yes, you can be engulfed, but you cannot be digested unless the cell doing the digesting has the right enzyme to eat you.
Then, if the AI cell has the silicon membrane, then your cell just can't engulf it at all. So it's
No, you can
seems to
still
be getting
engulf it, but it gets thrown out immediately if you cannot digest it.
I thought that was only with the kind of medium strength membranes, the chitin and the
wait,
cellular.
no wait, sorry. I thought you meant one of the membranes that provides resistance to engulfing, but silica is not one of them. So anyone who can engulf things can engulf you if you have the silica membrane.
Is there a specific reason for that, or is it just something that hasn't been covered in the code?
I mean,
I'm
you'd
not
have
sure
to
why.
ask the theory team that does life in real life need very specific adaptations to eat something with a silica membrane. Like for cellulose and chitin, it's been like the theory team has verified that those need pretty advanced enzymes to eat, so that's modeled in the game as providing immunity to basic engulfment. But then things that evolve enzymes that specifically target your membrane can still digest you. Okay, with the bug report done, do we have any more questions? Anyone in chat still? Did everyone leave already?
Definitely some people have left. There is a question about sex. Is there an idea when sexual reproduction would be included? And at what stage in the game that would first be there?
I mean, in
I'm
early
still not sure
multicellular,
when.
It will be one of the possible ways to reproduce. It's one of the people's favorite topics to debate on the forums about how when that like needs to be censored or removed. or not allowed to be in Thrive.
Yeah.
Yeah, Game Dungeon knows the horrors of the community forums.
Yeah, there are certain things it's generally better not to ask about on there.
Well, I guess no one wants to ask any more questions, so I suppose we can end the stream. We almost made it to the 2-hour mark.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
Yeah, let's say bye, and I'll end the stream.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Bye, everyone.
Bye.